Everybody to the Patriotic Dragon Radio Show, September 8th recording. The show, just to give a little clarification to it, is a show to bring honest, open, and thoughtful conversation back to the airways, to get ideas and opinions from and to our community about topics from across the spectrum, allowing groups and individuals to be a part of the process for a better, brighter future. We want to educate, inform, and inspire. Live recordings each week from venues across the county and the area. This week, we've been brought to us by Rocco's Pub. Just a little quick disclaimer here. I want to first thank you to WYYZ and Rocco's Pub. Discussions, opinions, and views expressed during the show are those of the guests and not necessarily of the Pickens County GOP or WYYZ. All right, I want to thank our guests tonight, David Leister, Anthony Raines, Lee, forget your last name, I apologize. Williams, Stephen Hall, and myself, William Bell. The topics we want to talk about this week, from a local standpoint, we want to start off the show with talking about property tax in Pickens County. Question that came up last week, and we talked about it somewhat, and that was what we wanted to start off the discussion this week, was about the millage rate. So I'd like to open it up. David, I'll throw it to you first on that, since you're on the far end of the table.
Well, thank you very much. I hate to borrow from a conversation that we just had before this started, but millage rates are subjective. I mean, it depends on what the need of the county is at the time, whether political needs require that millage rates be raised, or whether it's the actual budgetary needs that require it. A millage rate can be increased so that the commissioners don't need to increase taxes. It can be lowered so that it reflects better a booming economy, which we don't currently have. Also, it brings into play a lot of other aspects of running the county and how we need to get money and who is in charge and who is making decisions on the people. Since we don't have a big commercial base, millage rates affect the citizens more than the businesses. That's definitely something we will need to look at carefully as voters. Who are we supporting, and what are they going to bring to the county that's going to benefit everyone?
Right. Okay.
My opinion.
Right. Anthony, your thoughts on the
I'm
rates?
going to have to disagree with David about the millage rate affecting citizens more than businesses. Mm-hmm. If you break it down to, now, I will say that the millage rate, or the taxes in general, are carried more by homeowners and businesses than by large landowners. But if you break the millage rate down, the amount of tax paid, the way it affects a business is an individual is going to pay, depending on, the size of their home, how much property they've got. It could be anywhere from $18 an acre all the way up to $1,000 per acre per year. Businesses, on the other hand, you could take two examples. One is Rocco's, where we're at. Right. His current, let me find it. He's currently at $2,500 an acre just for school tax and $1,100 just for the county tax.
Wow.
And if you take Walmart down the road, they're paying $4,500 an acre.
Ooh, yeah.
For the school tax. They're paying $80,000 a year in school tax.
80,000.
Yeah. So
well, that's because they're also in the city of Jasper, and that's a whole nother.
No, this is just county tax.
I'm just joking.
This county tax. Yeah. The land itself in the county, the total area is it's like 150,000 acres. That much land would not support the county.
Right.
It has to be on buildings, so it's on homeowners and businesses. But you've got some large landowners who are only paying less than $10 an acre.
Right. Because that's based on the agricultural usage of it
No,
versus
this is a
residential.
non-agricultural, non-conservation, no exemptions whatsoever. They're paying $9.66 an acre. On 3,000 acres. They've got 3,320 acres that they just acquired in 2014. In 2013, the tax on that property was $102,000 for school tax and $42,000 in county tax. But in 2014 it was 32 for school and 14,000 for the counties. So the school system lost $70,000 in 1 year.
Wow.
And the county lost $28,000 in 1 year on one group.
So do we really think that it's a matter of reappraising the current land?
Oh, yeah, the appraisals are all over the place.
Right.
There's like no real consistency to it. You've got property. I found one property in the county that's actually appraised at like $60 an acre.
And just for clarification, where you derive your numbers was from the county website?
Yes,
or?
the county's.
So it's open
tax,
records.
Right,
It's
the county's
something.
tax websites where I get the information. Now, I've gone through and got it from different parts of the website. There's two websites: the commissioner's website, the assessor's website, and then compiled it into a different form so that the numbers, you can see what numbers goes with what piece of property. And you can also see who's delinquent on their taxes. In 2014, there were 850 people in the county that have not paid their taxes. And we have people that are going back to 2008 that haven't paid their taxes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and the county's not going after them.
right.
Now, really, it's the tax commissioner's job to get those people, but the tax commissioner's not going after them. But the county could. Georgia law allows for the county to go after delinquent taxpayers.
Yeah.
But they're not going to do it. I've already talked to them about it, and they're not going to do that.
Well,
Georgia law says we want 12 months in 1 day.
right. 366 days. Yeah.
12 months in 1 day. And then
No, Georgia law
Pickens-
doesn't say that.
Yeah, I looked it up. It's code. It's after 12 months in 1 day,
Okay.
you can, the counties are allowed to do
Allowed.
a tax foreclosure. Now, I call the county office. They wait 2 years. Then I ask her
They wait
why.
longer than 2 years.
I ask them why does some of these in the tax website show owing 4, 5, or more years, and she says, well, there's probably special circumstances.
Right.
And the valuation of land is the biggest problem in this county. If they would go out and evaluate the land the way it should be, we would get a lot more tax money.
Sure. Well, and you want to be even-handed across the board. If it's the zoning part of it, and there's a classification for the rates at that point, that would make sense. But yeah, if you've got two similar pieces of property, one on the east side of the county, one on the west side, at two different millage rates, that's a problem.
Or you won't have different millage rates, but you will have different assessments.
Right.
And that can be from just across the road.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
I know for someone personal, their home has 1 acre, and that 1 acre is valued the same as the neighbor's 5 acres.
Yeah.
That's the problem we're having. The taxes, the footing the tax bills in this county is just left up to homeowners and businesses. Landowners aren't paying.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Steve?
Let me, if I could, add some, or at least maybe ask more questions upon this, because I'm sitting here thinking, you know, as someone who hasn't been down this road a whole lot yet, I'm thinking, first of all, what numbers are we looking at? Is there a time frame or a set number of years that we're looking at on those numbers?
Was that all
The
extrapolated from 2000?
numbers, okay.
I know one of the things that I'm thinking about. I don't mean to kind of dance around those issues, but are we looking at recession type numbers at all? Could
No,
that be-
2014.
Okay. Yeah, current tax year.
Current tax numbers.
And that's fine. And I guess my next question was, because there were two parts to it, is I know you guys had some questions about the tax assessor's job and if he was adequate enough in that role, and my thinking was and I've been in a commissioner's meeting before where this was actually brought up, and one of the things that I kept reiterating in my head was, let's just say for a second that they did go after these individuals. I know, I've been around Pickens County long enough to know that if you're delinquent in your taxes, let's just say, what if they went after the debtor? What are they going to get in many cases? If a debtor is, say, $20,000 in the hole,
Doesn't matter.
what are they going to get? And
20,000. What hole are you talking about? 20,000 in the hole.
Let's throw a number out. I am John Smith. I live in the middle of Pickens County. I'm $20,000 in tax debt, and I've got the tax assessors coming to my door knocking and saying, you owe us XYZ amount, in this case $20,000.
Okay.
I don't have $20,000.
Okay.
At that point, the conversation changes completely into a
Okay.
different direction. I don't think the tax assessor's office is prepared to go down that road at that moment. Am I right?
The tax assessor won't go down that road. The tax
It's the tax
commissioner will.
assessor's responsibility.
And that's, I guess what I'm saying is
Not, well, wait a minute. It's not the tax assessor's responsibility. It's the
Right.
tax commissioner's responsibility.
and I guess that's what I'm thinking in my head is, okay, so if it's a tax assessor or a tax commissioner, I imagine somewhere down along the road it's going to be a sheriff knocking down this door. And
Not
Well, yes.
necessarily.
Should be.
All they got to do, okay, they can pay their
and
tax.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Because we have we've got one individual saying that it should be possibly, and you guys.
No,
saying
no, no,
that
no.
should-
It
that
is
it
possible.
It needs to be.
Well,
It needs to be.
No, I'm
it
saying
can
they
happen.
need to collect it. They need to make an active attempt to collect the tax.
Right.
Letting it go for 7-8 years is not an active attempt to collect the tax.
And I guess, what do we do when we reach that 7-8 year point?
We don't reach that 7-8 year point.
Right.
It should be collected before then.
Exactly.
What are the things that you would propose in doing in trying to collect that tax?
Put a lien on their property, and then if they don't pay the tax, take it.
Take it and sell it on the courthouse steps.
And
I'm going to disagree. The first thing you do is talk to the delinquent individual and see if you can set up a payment plan.
Okay.
And then
I can
if
go
that
along with
fails-
but you don't let it go 8 years.
No, you don't. But you give them the opportunity to make good on it. If they can't make good on it, and there's a variety of reasons why, that's when you have to play hardball. Because we shouldn't all be made to pay our taxes and others be given a free ride.
That's why the taxes keep going up, because of the
Right.
free riders. In order
Well-
to make up the money that they're losing, they have to tax the people that are paying it
And
more to make up.
That's what I'm saying. They should make an active attempt to collect the tax.
At the end of 2014, there was over $1 million owed the county in back taxes.
And let me, I'm not disagreeing with you guys at all, but because when you say an active attempt, that's a very vague kind of scenario for me. I'm thinking in my
Okay.
head. Oh, wait a second. I'm thinking in my head that there would be at some point down the line, there's going to be a time when a sheriff's knocked down the door, and for me, if I'm sitting here saying to myself that if I got my sheriff or my deputies or the police of Pickens County involved in a situation where they're harming their lives for any kind of amount of money, at this point in time.
You talking about
then I
somebody
might-
meeting them at the door with a gun?
Do what?
Are you talking about somebody meeting them at the door with a gun?
Yeah, and in many cases they do this in Atlanta, and it doesn't end up very well. In fact, Atlanta has seen just the opposite in a lot of cases to the kind of response that I think you guys are looking for.
Wait a minute. What kind of response do you think we're looking for?
Well, you said if earlier that if the delinquent and the debtor doesn't pay, then you sell the property on this courthouse to debt.
Okay.
Now, there's a process to go about that.
I said
Yeah.
you make an active attempt, okay? And if you can't collect it, then you take their property. You might put a lien on it. There is a process you have to go through. You have to put a lien on it. After a certain amount of time, you can sell it. And I'm not saying you do that first. First you make an attempt to collect it.
Well, and it sounds like really realistically what we need to do is we need to have a clear and concise where the status of every delinquent piece of property in the county is, and that be publishable and be public record. Because if you owe your income tax to the state of Georgia and you're a business, you can find it on the state website
Oh,
very
you can
easily.
find it on the Pickens County website too.
So if a landowner for whatever reason is behind 366 days,
850 people. There's a list of them.
All of them.
so it's out there, it's available. So
Yeah.
I think our first of order of business from a citizen standpoint would be to make sure that everybody on that list is either under a payment plan and actively doing it, or what the status of the property is.
Right. That's the one thing missing from the list is, are they set up on a payment plan?
Right. Yes.
Okay, well,
I know
right. I understand that part.
I know there's an individual in the tax commissioner's office who's working with citizens to make the payments, but we don't know
Right.
that that's happening. So that kind of,
We don't know.
We don't know. And
But-
it's not fair to the people who pay their taxes.
When you
Right.
have
Right.
people that haven't paid since 2008, they haven't paid 2008 and every year after that.
Right.
right.
And they
How can
owe all
be
this
on-
land.
How can they be
owe-
on a payment plan?
Look
Yeah.
at there.
Is that they're on the new penny plan? That's what it is. Okay. All right. I like to move in that same venue, but to a different topic, and that is the education tax exemption for seniors. And you know, I want to open that up. And Lee, I know this is something that's near and dear to your heart, so I like to open it up and let you kind of talk about that. And
Well, it is dear to my heart. I'm really passionate about it. Pickens County does not have any kind of tax exemptions for seniors unless you're at the poverty level, which is $25,000 is the threshold. And they did not build in a COLA. So if those poor people who use the income threshold get an increase in their Social Security, they're over that $25,000 threshold, $100, and they don't get the tax exemption.
Okay.
There's a lot of I hear from a lot of elderly people who are struggling to pay their property taxes because they can't afford them anymore. They're having to sell and get out. Every county around us has some meaningful form of tax exemptions for seniors except Pickens.
all right.
We need it. It would encourage people to move up here.
Right, and that's what we need to do to grow the county.
Yes.
We need people who, first off, want to move here, want to add to the county and the quality of life we have here, and be able to pay their property tax, obviously. So, with those things in mind, Anthony, what are your thoughts on the senior exemption?
Okay, I'm in favor of the senior exemption.
Right.
I'm not at that point yet where it would benefit me. But now I have to agree, you give the seniors an exemption, then the schools will lose some revenue.
Right.
But it's not such a significant amount. From what I can figure, it's probably going to be about $800,000 a year.
To make up for it. That's what an EF splotch would do. That's what Gilmer County does.
Okay,
They have an
but
EF splotch.
the millage
Yes,
rate,
well, okay.
the education millage rate in Pickens County is at 16.1, which is one of the lowest around. The state mandated maximum is 20. Most surrounding counties are at the 19 or above. Some of them are like slightly below 19, but right in that range. And, you know, a couple of millage points on the education spread out properly wouldn't make that big a difference, and I'd be willing to pay the increase for the next however many years so that I would get the exemption when I reach 65, because at that point, as an spread out over the county, it doesn't make a big deal, but for individuals it does, because it gives them a break.
Right.
So I would be in favor of the education exemption, and I don't think it would really hurt the county.
If they would reevaluate the land?
Yeah, I mean, if the land was more fairly assessed,
Right. It would
help a lot.
Oh, it would help.
You know, you've got, as far as if you lose 800,000, well, there's 80,000. 10% of it's, you know, right here on this list.
That's
Right.
one company too.
Right.
Yeah.
David, your thoughts? Because I mean, you're getting close to that senior level. I mean, so
Well, I appreciate that. I hope I make it.
that's the plan, brother. That's the plan.
That's awesome, by the way. You just totally called him out.
It's kind of difficult for me to say anything different than what they've said. I mean, they've done the research. I applaud all their efforts. But what we really need to look at is what's the plan? Okay, we want to cut the senior rates. I mean, is the plan just to raise millage for everybody, make it fair and equitable?
I
Or?
didn't say that.
No.
And also, you need to bear in mind that the property tax doesn't pay the entire school budget.
Right.
I mean, they get a lot more money from state and federal and other grants. I mean, the property tax is really a small part of their budget.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it shouldn't make that much of a difference.
Right. Yeah, from my standpoint, it's something we talked about on the last radio show, is that in order to offset taxes for any business, property owner, whether it be seniors or newlyweds who just moved into the county, is to grow the county environment. We need more businesses. We need some good light industrial that employ that 10 to 20 persons in the business, that type of thing. And I think, honestly, we talked about on the last radio show, and I kind of bring it back on this one, that has to be part of the plan. It has to be more, it has to be multi-tiered, and it's definitely got to be multifaceted, so that when you grow an area, you grow that tax base. In the business I'm in and stuff, we always say sales cures everything. If you've got enough sales, you can pay everybody that needs to be paid and put profit in the bank. A county has to be run as a business. If a business had vendors that they couldn't pay because they had customers who were 5, 6, 7 years behind on their ARs and their APs, they wouldn't. First off, they wouldn't be your customer anymore because you'd cut them off. Secondly, you'd already have taken them to court.
Yes.
So we definitely need to look at that and put together a plan. And I think what we need to do from a standpoint of the citizens, whether you be a Democrat, a Libertarian, a Republican, Tea Party, whatever, or somebody who's not even involved in politics, we need to help the county commissioners understand, the school board understand, the tax commissioner's office understand.
But the school
that-
board legally has nothing to say about it.
They may not, but I'm sure that they are an influencer, because they're going to have to sign off on it if we're going to move $800,000 away from one
No,
source
they don't.
and replace it.
Really,
from another.
they don't have to sign off on it.
No.
If they don't have to sign off of it, do you think it'd be good to have their support?
Well, yeah, it'd be good to have their support, but what I'm saying is
Right.
they don't have, it's not their decision.
Right.
Their decision, their job is to recommend to the county an amount for their budget.
Right.
Then the county commissioners are supposed to vote, they would approve it, and then it gets collected by the tax commissioner.
Right.
Whether or not there is a senior exemption falls under the purview of the Board of Commissioners.
Okay. All right.
But the commissioners don't need to okay it. Rick Jaspers, our representative, does not have to go through the commissioners to get a tax exemption put on the ballot. He would like their blessing, but he don't have to have it.
I think we need to consider that a last resort.
Yeah, that's true. I agree.
I think we're missing, because to me, this is, it's not a very specific topic. And typically, I am one to get rid of the fluff. But I think it's important to also note that through this process, there is probably a good majority of individuals out there that don't know where their property tax goes, how it's initiated, and knows the
Absolutely.
difference between the school board and the county and the city. And I think that's a huge problem that we need to address. I think you touched on it a little bit earlier. But when I'm sitting here and we're talking about taxes, which is also near and dear to my heart,
Yeah.
I can't help but think about a lot of other taxes that affect how our schools are run, how our counties are run, how our cities and municipalities, and right down to our individual wallets. And I think school tax is just one of many, 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 many layers that gets very confusing. And for me, I want to back up and I just want to look at the 30,000 foot view before I go diving into the macroscopic
Right. Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
And digest all of those other taxes that we have problems with. For example, when we have a citizenry that is now 2-to-1 in the
Social Security.
that's a little disparaging if you're talking about Social Security taxes.
Yeah.
And especially when that Social Security rate does go up every year by 1%.
Oh yeah, whoopee! I can buy
Okay.
a lot with $18.
Let me ask you a question. 2-to-1? What do you mean 2-to-1?
Two contributors.
Yeah, contributors to
Every-
recipients.
Yeah.
It's now 2-to-1, and it started out
16 to 1.
16-to-1.
16 to 1
Yeah.
when Social Security was first implemented.
2-to-1, are you talking about in this county?
No, in the nation.
Okay, in the nation.
Nationwide, it's
Correct.
2 contributing to the support of 1. Previously, when Social Security was first put on us by our friend FDR, then it was 16 contributors for 1 person receiving the benefit.
But beyond that, I think that is just one layer to where we are now that gets us very confused, because I guarantee you go around to Jasper and you poll individuals, they won't understand where the property taxes is coming from, who implements that, and who is ultimately going out there and making those calls to where those taxes go.
Well, no, they just don't want to pay the school tax. They don't think
I think
they
that's
should
just-
pay it. Because they're elderly.
No, I'm not talking about the elderly. I don't think Steve was talking about.
Yeah.
Talking about the overall citizens.
Yeah, I
How many citizens, if you stood at the front door of Kroger's and asked what the percentage of city tax, county tax, school tax, if they're a homeowner, how much they're paying? I would venture to
They
say
just know total amount.
they could probably tell you about Caitlyn Jenner, but they probably couldn't tell you about their school tax.
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
Well, there's only 19.6 percentage of the population in this county that's over 65.
Well, maybe that's the problem, is that maybe it's not and I don't want to make this out to be a generational gap thing or an age thing. Maybe it is a ignorant thing.
Yeah, low information, lack of
Maybe
information.
That's what
the
we're
big-
trying to do with our website.
But
Oh, yeah. I'd like to give you an opportunity to people that want to get some more information specifically
I just think
that
it goes beyond
situation.
that. Not just
Yeah.
Yeah.
just to this tax though.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
absolutely.
think Social Security has anything to do with it.
No,
If we're talking about taxes, Social Security I think has a lot to do with it.
No, we're talking about local taxes.
But I
No.
think all of those taxes in general.
Yeah, well, we started out talking about local taxes, property tax,
Yeah.
school tax. There was no mention of Social Security or
And that's
income,
why
which
I
has
said
nothing
I
to
think
do
this-
with property.
That's why I said I think this conversation
Your
is
your
on a
income
30,000
has
foot view.
right.
So
Well, your
we
income.
can easily say that school taxes should not be allocated to XYZ forum, but we could also say that about a lot of the other taxes too. So again,
But right now, we're just
Yes, but
concerned
dragging
with this
other
county.
taxes into this issue is confusing the issue.
Yes,
But I
we're
think,
just concerned with Pickens County and the tax exemption and the high property taxes and school taxes.
Right.
But I think if you went down and again, if you walk
If you
down,
want to get Social Security into it, that's why people are having trouble paying their taxes. They live off Social Security.
Right.
and again, I think if you walk down Main Street and ask them where do your property taxes come from, who allocates that, majority of people would not know.
Right.
nor do they care.
Right. Okay.
They just know they're paying it.
Well, good. I'll give you a quick opportunity, Lee, to give your website for
Oh,
your...
yes, our website is PickensSeniorsForChange.com.
All right, good deal. All right, well, I want to jump and move on to a subject that I hope everybody had an opportunity to enjoy this past weekend, and that was our 5th annual Jeep Fest 2015 to benefit the Sheriff's Boys and Girls Ranch and several other charities in the county. David, did you get a chance to go?
I went on Sunday with my 2 youngest children and a friend. We had a great time watching everybody jump in the mud,
Yeah.
watching the Jeeps try to get up the hill, not always successfully,
All right.
but it was good. The one thing I noticed is that the difference from last year there was a lot of activity along this 515 route. The businesses were all packed, but this time when I came back on the weekend, on Saturday, as an example, I went to Pizza Hut. I went to order 2 pizzas. Well, when I went in, it was pretty much empty. When I came back to pick them up, it was half full, but the years before, it was packed nonstop. So
Sure.
by moving it out of the Jasper proper area, they more or less spread that into Dawson County. People were going in that direction also. And while it's a good place to have it, it really was, they need to try to bring the crowds back to Jasper, because while it does benefit the charities, it benefits our community.
Right.
So,
Anthony,
Yeah, I noticed the same thing.
did you get
It
a
was-
chance
it
to
was
go?
a lot- Yeah, I went, and it was a lot more crowds in the restaurants and stuff on 515 all around last year than there was this year. Plus, the traffic on that 2-lane road getting to the Jeep Fest was terrible.
Yeah.
It was just backed up for miles.
Right. Yeah, I think it was backed up from the Tate 4-way all the way down to it. I had the opportunity to be there Friday night, help do parking from 3 to 4 or 3 to 7, so I got my 4 hours in the rain. And then went back Sunday morning for the church service that Woodstock did, and stayed there till about 11:30. So it was really good. A couple things that I noticed, talked to some people from different parts of the state who had been last year, a couple that had been the year prior and didn't get to come last year. They liked the courses. They liked the obstacle course this year better than the pipes and everything we've had there at Ingalls and all in the past. But the comment was made about the 2.5 miles of traffic. But something else, I talked to a real estate agent and made the comment to me that they had, once people found out they were with real estate companies, they had 4 or 5 different people at Jeep Fest asking them about properties available in Pickens County, houses and just raw property. And they said that's something that they'd been to every one of the Jeep Fest. They've been a participant and a volunteer, and they had not had that conversation. So that was good. So hopefully maybe next year that would be one of the vendors that would be there, would be the real estate council in Pickens County could have a vendor spot set up and advertise the beauty and that community level for the county. But Stephen, did you get a chance to go?
I actually did, and actually participated more than just going to the home base. I actually got to ride some of the trails. So,
Oh, nice.
In fact, I think I'm still digging mud out of places I didn't think I had.
That's the whole point.
So,
That's the whole point.
To the point of how do you draw those individuals to Jasper, I do think that needs to be addressed. We had that one night, Friday night, the Shining Show. It was all right. It was a good number of people. I think the weather may have had a factor in that just a little bit. But to a bigger point is the traffic. I think in talking to a lot of the other people that were, when I was just walking around or doing some other things, kind of taking note in casual conversation, was the traffic. It was very chaotic. Also, to the traffic, you had a lot of people that were trying to get that resolved, because consequently you had people not on the trails, and you had a lot of Jeepers that weren't able to go on those trails. For example, one evening they had every trail shut down, weather being a factor. They only had one open, and you couldn't. It was an easy trail, but for all the other options for Jeepers out there wasn't. So I think one, lack of volunteers, or the volunteers being spread too thinly,
Right.
and the traffic, and of course, lastly, what are we going to do about drawing those people into Jasper once again? And I kind of miss the bonfires. In years past, we've had the big bonfire, the bands there, chili cook-offs were huge.
Oh, yeah.
So we've done some other things, and I think ultimately, like the MC was saying there, we have a 5-year lease now. Each year, hopefully, should get better and better, and we should see a big draw. Because I know this, according to those that are responsible in this event, this actually draws more revenue than Marble Fest now.
Yeah, and I would definitely second that as far as the amount of people and the revenue coming through the county. And and hopefully what that'll do is we'll turn around and we'll get the Chamber of Commerce, the Jasper Business Association to sponsor some events back there at Ingalls. Maybe we do one night with a bonfire, chili cook-off type thing, because the Main Street people, they did a really good job Friday and Saturday night, and I know it benefited the businesses, especially J-Town Grill is one of the new places in town, and I think that Jimmy, the owner and stuff, they've been holding their own, but I think they'd have had 10 more servers they couldn't have caught up on Friday night. So that's good across the board. So maybe maybe next year the Chamber and the Business Association could sponsor some events to pull those people back off
And
of
the Sheriff's Department did a great job of
Oh, yeah.
working the traffic. I mean, that was
Oh, yeah.
horrendous, and they were really on it.
Oh yeah, Donnie
So-
Craig's team.
But the problem
Kudos.
remains with,
Two
one
lanes.
lane.
2 lanes is 2 lanes.
That's it.
Yeah.
And you can't do much more
Yeah.
with that.
Well, and maybe we could get our state representative to make an appeal to the state to detour them down 372, 369 for those traffic people just going through. Because I saw everything from Friday afternoon. I saw 2 logging trucks pass by and chicken feed trucks and that type thing. So I'm sure that the right advertisement, if we can hold off to move a depot from one side of the road to the other, we could probably divert some traffic to relieve Jeep Fest. Yeah, Lee?
Well, what about busing like they do for the Marble Festival?
Well, most of the people there for Jeep
parking,
Fest.
have a parking somewhere off-site and bus people in.
Yeah.
That would help.
It might, but Marble Fest, the people are there to walk through and see the vendors and displays. If I'm going to bring my $40,000 Jeep, I'm going to drive my $40,000 Jeep.
Amen. Yeah. and by the way, a big shout out to all of our local artists who participated on Main Street.
Oh, yeah.
We have some awesome, amazing talent. Jacob Bryant, you haven't checked him out, Jacob Bryant Music.
Yep.
CC
His
Morgan
Facebook
Band,
as well.
they shut down Main Street that night.
Yep.
And I know some of the retail shops and whatnot along there, J-Town Grill, they all appreciated that business. So I know that was a good event, and the alcohol was flowing a little bit. So
that's the reason those
always brings in money.
That's it, Bree. That's the reason you put the orange cones out. All right. Well, great. Well, good deal. Next thing I want to touch on from a state standpoint is something that's near and dear to my heart. We were talking earlier before the show started, and may not be near to everybody, but it is to me, and that's college football programs. This year was the first year for Kennesaw State University.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah, we got us a KSU boy here. There you go. And what would you send me on the text? Undefeated?
That's
And
exactly
still
right.
undefeated. So, everybody who likes Southeastern Conference football has to be an optimist, right? So, but, just my comment is, I've got a daughter. I went to the University of, Auburn University. My daughter just graduated from the University of Alabama, 2 powerhouses for football. And now my daughter's at UGA. And so, an up and coming.
Finally made the right decision.
That's it. I told you, right? And so, we've got our one set of tickets for to go see Georgia play this year. We're going to watch them play against the University of Alabama on October 3rd. So looking forward to that Saturday. But
so wait, you totally missed that. Who are you rooting for?
I'm not really sure. I'm going to wear red. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to be wearing red.
What shade of red?
It may be a little sweaty and kind of dark. But, from my standpoint, I see the benefit of college sports. I do see being a previous college athlete. That's how I paid for my first 2 years of college, was running track at Auburn University.
Did they have roller skating or figure skating?
Figure skating.
Was that? Okay.
Yeah. And, so the amount of exposure that a college gets, it was interesting when my daughter went to University of Alabama for her first presentation. The dean of the school talked about all the academics, all the new housing, the new biology department, that type thing. And one of the last things he mentioned, he said, and we do have a pretty good football team. So, the millions and millions of dollars that come to that school, a lot of people, if they're not involved in college sports, don't realize those sports teams carry the bill for a tremendous amount of non-athletic opportunities. 43% of the dorms and buildings at the University of Alabama are paid for by the athletic funding, not by the state of Alabama, not by the taxpayers, but by University of Alabama alumni. They contribute over $200 million a year for scholarships that are used across the entire spectrum of academia as well as sports. And so it's and so there's a benefit there to it. From my standpoint, I appreciate it. Stephen, as a KSU graduate,
that's right. Well, you talked about the huge money, and that is a huge figure for obvious reasons. On the flip side of that, it's hard for a smaller school, even though KSU is one of the largest schools body-wise, to be able to match that. But I will say, because when it first started out, I was a bit apprehensive, because one of the draws to KSU was the reasonably quote-unquote priced tuition for all kicks and giggles. That can be a vague term, but I will say that now that we're in this, now that I've been to all of those meetings where the Brian Bohannon's talking about what's come ahead, and we built a really good foundation. If a school can do that, because it's going to be tough for a school like Kennesaw. I know we scheduled out years in advance to play Georgia Tech only, but those are big paydays for KSU as well.
Right.
That maybe rollover teams and rollover games that day, but those are huge paydays for us. And I think if it's framed in the right manner and contributes and continues to go down the right path, a school like KSU or smaller can ultimately start to build up something like your UGAs and right. Your Crimson Tide.
That's it.
Yeah. But I mean, again, those are programs that have been around for almost 100 years.
Right.
But again, the excitement this past Saturday was nothing less than what I expected. Of course, we blew it away. I mean, we had a good foundation. We brought some dogs in to help us out.
Well, here you go.
So I'm excited to see KSU football and the Owls, to see where they go.
Well, I think
East Tennessee was no
pushover.
There's no pushover team once upon a time. So
well, good deal.
Anybody else got any college football?
I don't know enough about college football to make a comment on it.
All right.
I'm not opposed to it. I'm not a football fan, but I'm not opposed to it. I understand about the scholarships that they supply to people who otherwise wouldn't go to college.
Right.
But I just don't know enough about the whole financial situation of it.
Well, and a good example, my daughter had a friend there at University of Alabama that is working, getting ready to get started on her master's degree. And my daughter had a friend that graduated from KSU last year who's teaching in Cobb County, and actually mentioned the fact that KSU was going to have football, and the young lady was actually planning on going to Texas A&M for her master's. And they started talking about curriculum at KSU, and she found out they had a speech pathology major that she could take there or at Georgia State. And she actually is now planning on coming to Kennesaw and Georgia State both and look at them. And the only reason that she became aware of it is she actually watched the KSU ball game on Saturday, and during the game they showed the campus, they showed pictures of the dorms, the campus, and all that kind of thing. She never knew it was there. And this young lady lives in Center, Alabama. She actually lives closer to Georgia and KSU than she does to Alabama or at Texas A&M.
To her defense, she does have to have a passport to get over the line. So,
Well, if you come in early in the morning and leave before the sun goes down, you're okay. Right. Yeah. So, all right. Well, I think we've run through most of our time tonight. I really appreciate everybody coming out. David, Anthony, Lee, Stephen, as always, thank you for being here. All right. And I want to close it out by again thanking our sponsors, Rocco's Pub, and our host, WYYZ, Matt Youngblood and his group. Fantastic support as always. Thank y'all.
William, just before we go, I think we tripled our crowd size.
Yeah, I believe so too.
So
yeah.
If we do this every time, we're going to fill up Rocco's pretty quickly.
That's what we want to do. All right. Thank you.